Principle number 2 is this: we must be willing to overcome challenge. Phil talked about that this morning. Limitations. Richard talked about it yesterday morning. We must be willing to overcome challenge. There's no secret. The last 3 to 5 years have been, let's just say, character building. They've been tough. They've been challenging. But I'm convinced of this: extraordinary people go through extraordinary challenges. And if I could interview every single one of you all in the room, you would tell me that you did not get a seat at the $1 Million Roundtable experience because everything was easy for you. You earned a seat here because you were an overcomer, because you're a gladiator. John, because they're warriors. I believe that there's a warrior inside of every single one of you all in this room. And if you're a warrior, go ahead and say yes. Okay, so I did a really good yes, and your energy was like whack. So can we try that again? Right? I flew 8,500 miles to get here. Can you give me a good yes back? All right. If there's a warrior inside of every one of us that's going to overcome our challenges, scream yes. That's a little bit more like it. Challenges. They're tough. I want you to understand something powerful and profound. As high achievers, we have the greatest challenge of all when it comes to overcoming challenges. You know why? Because every single day we have to lead while we bleed. In other words, we have to learn how to play hurt. We don't get a chance to take a timeout. We don't get a chance to take days off. We got to keep going no matter what we go through. Isn't that right, y'all? The unfortunate part about that is that it makes us wear the mask. The mask that makes it look as if everything's fantastic, but underneath we're covering up a tremendous amount of hurt, a tremendous amount of pain, and a tremendous amount of disappointment. However, if we're going to heal, and if we're going to transform our thinking so we can transform our life, we have to understand something powerful. And that truth is this: life is not about waiting for the storms to pass. Life is really about learning how to dance in the rain. I'm going to say that again. Life is not about waiting for the storms of your life, the storms of your business to pass, but rather life is about learning how to dance in the rain. But in order to do that, you got to be willing to take off the mask, and I want to go first. The truth is, I know what it's like to be labeled an at-risk youth in the 5th and 6th grade, told academically I wasn't going to amount to much of anything. In fact, let me take you back a little bit further. I know what it's like to be a medical impossibility. And doctors say that there was no way I was supposed to even be born, because my father was shot in the upper back twice, fighting in the Vietnam War. Doctors told him he would never be able to impregnate a woman. Doctors told my mother that her birth canal was too narrow, so she would never be able to have children. So I had 2 strikes against me coming into this thing called life. So I wasn't even supposed to be here, number one. In the 5th grade, I was academically written off. When I finally become a teenager, I get my first job working at a grocery store. Guess what? I was centimeters away from one of the greatest hate crimes in my city, when my good friend was abducted from our grocery store parking lot, picked up and taken in a pickup truck 3 miles down the road to a nearby cornfield. They poured gasoline on his body and set him on fire just because he was African American. And my boss told me that had I showed up to work right before Chris, that would have been me. I know what it's like to go to college and have great hopes and dreams of pledging a great fraternity, only for that fraternity to not want me and not think I was good enough. I know what it's like to come out and get my first job in corporate America, and then I buy my first house, and then, you know, in between that day when you close on the house and you make that first payment, I got laid off from that cushy corporate job and went from 50 grand to nothing in a day. Had to sell that first house. Had a blemish on my credit report at the age of 21 with a master's degree and a 4.0. I know what it's like to struggle to keep my business afloat in the middle of a recession. I know what it's like to go through the pain of divorce. But I know what it's like to go through the greatest challenge of all, when I lost my mentor, my coach, my best friend.